Everyone's always discussing their favourite games, their top games. And I've already done a video going into my favourite solo games. However, they aren't the only titles that I play solo. There's a whole bunch of other games that I like to play on an individual basis, and I haven't given them any limelight. And the reason is they are hard for me to recommend to other people. They are quirky, unusual, and different in a way that I don't think will have mass appeal. But nevertheless, I like those games. I find these games interesting. And so today I'm going to take a completely different approach. And I'm going to talk to you about a variety of solo games in my collection that I like, but will be very hard for me to recommend to other people. But who knows, one of these games could be one you're interested in. Hello everyone, I am the Board Game Fanatic, and today, as I said in the intro, we're going to talk about a bunch of very different titles and give you a lowdown on some different solo games. Now, they're not all going to be amazing, and they're not all going to appeal to everybody, which is why I find them hard to recommend. But I like them enough to own them. I'm hoping today you find some interesting titles, and of course, if you like any of these, you can obviously try and track a copy down for yourself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Terror Below feels like an unofficial homage to the old school cult movie Tremors, where you are a small town in rural America and it is being attacked by huge worm-like monsters. In this game, you will be driving around the town, gathering equipment, searching for gear, collecting the worm eggs, and fulfilling various objectives whilst you compete against the monsters for survival. You'll be carefully moving around town, trying to avoid their attacks, clearing rubble that's created in their wake, gearing up to the point where you can take them head on and attack them. Every turn you're going to be playing a card down for your movement and action points. Depending upon the card that you play will determine how many action points you get. And sometimes it will trigger special abilities, and you will have to place these cards under the 3 different active worms in the town itself. When you reach a threshold, the worm attacks. So strategic placement of your cards is important. Terror Below fundamentally is a good game. I don't think it's the greatest solo game out there, but it's a good game here. It's really well designed. And the multiplayer mode is just as enjoyable as the solo mode. But in this game, for the solo mode, you are actively working to complete your objectives against whatever that time limit is. And there is a couple of different modes you can choose from, with different end game scenarios you can choose. So there's a bit of variety there. But I really like this game. I think it's got a gorgeous look to it. It's got a beautiful table presence. For a game about massive giant monstrous worms attacking the town, it's got a lovely look. The art is gorgeous, the components are great. The action card mechanic where you choose the vehicle, which will allow you to have so many actions. There's a lot to think about in this game. It's very well designed and it's underrepresented in the solo community, I think. I like it. Now that I've talked about it, I want to play it again. And although I don't get it out all the time, it's still one that when it's brought up, I want to play it. I like it. And so it's going to be staying in my collection, this one, because it is a good game with a great theme, great presentation, and great look. And the multiplayer mode is just as good as the solo mode. Right, Friday, which is a game I've only recently purchased, but it's been on my radar for over 5 years. I've had my eye on this one for a long time. I'm surprised that it's taken me till now to order it. But it's only a small card game, and essentially you are helping Robinson Crusoe escape an island whilst the pirates are out at sea trying to stop you. So you have to develop Robinson Crusoe over the course of the game and make him stronger and more powerful so that he's able to overcome the pirates and escape. It's an epic theme, a great storytelling experience. There's not much text or anything in it, it's just that you feel like you're going through a story as you play. And what's going to happen is you're going to have a deck of cards that you're going to build up and improve as you play. You're going to encounter threats, you're going to play cards to try and complete them and get past them. And if you manage to do so, you're going to add that card, that threat card, to your deck, which one half will be the threat, one half will be the new card that's then in your deck. On some of the decks, there is multiple functions, and it works very well. It starts off easier for you to take on the threats, but When you run through the deck the first time, you then advance to the medium level, and then you get to the hard level. So if you don't defeat these tasks at the easy level, they're going to get harder and come back later. So a bunch of wild animals attacking you in the first phase of the game are going to be a lot weaker than when you get stronger and you're in the third phase of the game. So you need to improve your deck. You need to weed out the weak cards and develop it over the course of the game. I find this game very interesting, and I know 100% that this is not a game for everybody. This is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But I'm quite surprised with it. I'm quite interested in the title itself. It's very unusual. Obviously, it has a deck building kind of mechanic, which, as you probably know if you've watched my channel, I'm into, but it doesn't feel like anything I've got already. So it does a good job of standing out, and I think this is a very unusual solo game. Definitely some place for people to start if they're into deck building. But Friday's a good game. I've enjoyed it. I've only beaten it once so far, and I'll be playing it as a nice little filler solo game in the future many times. It's going to stay around. Zoo Tycoon, the board game, is one that made my special mentions at the end of my favourite solo games, and it rightly earns that spot because it's fairly new to me. I haven't had as much time with it as other titles I've been playing for a long time, but it has met my expectations on all fronts. I backed this on the GameFound or Kickstarter, I'm not sure which one, but I pledged in for it. I've even got the expansion for the game because I enjoyed it that much. But the thing is, this is a huge game. This is a very complex game. There's a lot going on in this title. You are managing the whole zoo. You are managing the enclosures. You are making sure they've got enough shelters for the animals to go and rest in. You're making sure that they have a large enough enclosure for them to be in. You're making sure that they have all the requirements they need to live happily in your zoo. So you are planning the zoo from the aerial perspective, laying it out and choosing what animals to bring into your zoo. And not only that, you're managing your animals, you're exporting to the exchange because you can't keep them all. And you're then trading and bringing in new animals all the time. So your zoo is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's a lot of mechanics in this game. It is a big game. And it's definitely one I'm going to do a review on at some point. But it is not one I can recommend to people because of how much is going on in it. It is a large, complex title with a lot to think about, and it's really involved. It's a very engaging game. If you're into the video games or you're into park builders, this is a game that you should try if you're ready for a heavy title. I just find it hard to recommend because it's a complex one. But regardless of that, I enjoy it every time I get it out. I've spent extra money to double up on the meeples because I found it really annoying that some of the animals were quite restricted. I'd like everybody to be able to get certain animals in their zoo when they play the game. I wanted some animals to not cut off at a certain point, so I wanted to double up on some stuff. And with the new expansion as well, with a whole new bunch of species to throw into the mix and add variety to the game, this is definitely a contender to join my top solo games soon, when we've had more playtime with it. But for the moment, it's just the difficulty curve itself I find very hard for me to recommend to people. Other than that, it is a brilliant title, and I'm very glad that I backed this. So You've Been Eaten is one that I was sold on just because of the comical factor, the funny way that they've done the art and the name of the game, and it is a very funny theme and a relatable one. If you've watched any sci-fis or horror movies, you know that these situations happen. People get eaten by a large monster and they've got to escape. So I like it. It's quite funny and humorous in that respect. But this game is one of the most bizarre and unusual ones that I've had. Just the aesthetic look of it, it's so weird and wacky. It's unusual. And the gameplay, not only do they give you the option to play two-player solo, they give you a player to run it automated and see what happens. I mean, I can't imagine anybody's going to do that. But this is a small game. They've compacted it down to a small tabletop presence with only a few components, but there's a bit of thinkiness to it. And as I said, it gives me very weird vibes when I play it. It's just so unorthodox compared to everything else I have. I don't know if there's longevity in this title. I don't know if this is one that I will keep for the long haul. But for now, I'm interested enough to want to keep it and play it a few more times. That's not saying that the gameplay is bad. No, the gameplay is reasonably easy to follow. If you are the monster, you have a set objective to do so many things. You want to devour the person that's inside of you. If you are the miner, the opposite player, they want to try and escape the monster after they've collected so much of the resources that they're there to collect, these precious gems, I think. So you're on the clock, you're trying to achieve your objective before the monster eats you. And I like that tenseness where you're trying to accomplish as much as you can and then get out. Or if you're the monster, you're trying to quickly devour the guy before he escapes. It's a very peculiar title, and I like it, and for now it's earned a spot in my collection. But I wouldn't recommend this to anyone because of, as I said before, it's just bizarre. It's just a very unusual title. Another unusual title is The Rise and Fall of Anvalor, a Warhammer Age of Sigmar game, which I've mentioned in a video before. And I like this game. I like what it offers because it is completely different to everything else in my collection. You are defending a city, but in this case, your units and your buildings are tiles that you place on the board on a square board, and the enemy tiles will be placed around the edges. And when so many enemy tiles are on a side, they launch an attack on the city and they move across the board trying to destroy everything in their path. Unless you've got strong enough soldiers and beasts in your city ready to deal with them. And so you need to play a bit of a thinky game where you're positioning your buildings in a place where they won't be hit by the monsters before your soldiers get to engage them. The tricky parts of this game is the enemies can be quite strong, and your troops might not be able to deal with them. So you're going to have to work hard to get the tougher units out, get them out on the board so that they can deal with the big monsters, the big nasties that are on their way. And I really like how the game plays. I like the swiftness of the turns. They're very quick and easy to follow. I like the artwork, although it is a little bit hard to see because it's small pictures on the tiles. I like the gameplay. I find it weird to have a hand of tiles instead of a hand of cards. And then on top of that, the tiles themselves function in two ways. They either can be used as a resource to pay and play something else in your hand, or you play the tile by discarding some of the others to pay for it. It's those two functions, being able to play the tile to do what it is, be a unit building, whatever, or discard it to be a resource to pay for another tile. I find that both unusual and unique. It's definitely something different. Rise and Fall of Anvalor gets very little to zero hype as far as I can see. I never see it mentioned. I never see it pop up anywhere. I don't think it made waves. And I don't think most people will ever remember this title. But I just find it interesting and unique enough and enjoyable enough for me to want to keep it. And I like that every game I can pull out a different faction and play a different faction. And I haven't played it enough to where they've got stale. There's quite a number of factions in the game to play. So it's got a lot of replayability. As well as you have 3 different enemy factions and you can scale their difficulty with different tiers. It's a good game. But as most of these titles will be, it's not one I'd recommend. In Chronicles of Crime, you will be the police department in London, investigating a crime depending on the scenario that you pick. You can have stealing of paintings, you can have the disappearance of a woman, and there are plenty of others that are downloadable content or free included in the main game. And you are going to investigate these crimes through the use of the application and you'll be scanning QR codes throughout. You'll be scanning locations as you move around London and investigate signs and interrogate and talk to different suspects. You'll be meeting different personalities and people that you will interact with and talk to. And you'll be searching crime scenes using the actual app to look around the crime scene and try and figure out anything that stands out to you that needs further examination. This is essentially a very good implementation of a CSI crime scene investigator game through the use of an application. You're going to be using a lot of imagination. You're going to be trying to figure out situations yourself. You're going to be analysing your evidence and things that you've found throughout the course of the investigation and things that people have spoken to you. You're going to be looking out for clues here, there and everywhere. And you're going to be thinking about how things are connected, pretty much like the cover itself, where you've got the drawing board and you've got all the different items linked together. You're going to be trying to figure out what's going on. And this does a very good job of turning you into an investigator trying to solve the case. I really like this game. I don't love it to bits because I've had plays with this with multiplayer where it kind of froze and stalled and people were getting a bit bored with it because obviously only one person's holding the phone and interacting with all the cards on the table. And it had a kind of a mixed opinion. So we didn't hate it, we didn't love it. But for solo play, I played a session the other day and it really went down well for me. I really enjoyed it. I really got pulled into the story and trying to figure out what was going on. And I think this is a good enough game to stay in my collection for now. I don't know if it's going to stay around forever. But this is a game that for me feels very unusual. You're going to be spending a lot of time playing with your phone, which is not something I ordinarily like to do. But you'll be scanning the QR codes, constantly picking up your phone, scanning this, then reading and trying to figure out the case whilst you're using your phone to scan all the different objects. It's an interesting way to do it. But if you're not into applications, then this is definitely not a game for you. If you're not into app board games, this is one you should avoid. It's a hard one for me to recommend, but it has been a huge success in the past. It has spawned countless sequels. You've got noir, you've got futuristic, you've got fantasy. They've done countless games within this system. And although I haven't tried any of the others beyond the base game, if they follow the same formula, I can only imagine they're just as good. This is a game that I really enjoy getting out, but it's not one that I would tell people to try unless you're into using an application and you're really interested in being an investigator and trying to use a bit of deduction to solve a case. Good game, but there's definitely room for it to improve on the base game. I don't know if the sequels have addressed some of the little faults here and there that I have with it. Santa Maria is a game I would have missed if not for listening to the reviews of Z Garcia from the Dice Tower. And I'm so glad that I actually picked this game up because it's a very good game. And I would have completely passed on it based on the cover alone, which is something I've mentioned before. Covers, obviously, they're important. They sell your game. And I would never have picked up this game based on the cover. But in it, you are the Spanish arriving at, obviously, the South Americas, and you are creating a colony. You are trying to make everybody in that colony happy. You're going to be sending out your conquistadors to search the lands and obviously plunder gold. You're going to be building your towns and connecting them together. You're going to be getting the resources you need to expand. And you're going to be building up your religious piety through gaining priests and sending them out to various tasks. This is a good game that is not overly complicated, but there's a bit of strategy and a bit of thinkiness to it. It's not super deep. This is a very welcoming game, but I think the theme alone is going to off-put a lot of people. And I think the biggest problem I have with it is the iconography for the tiles that you have at the top of the board. Now, you get these priests that you allocate to various things. Some of them just give you resources, which is very easy, but there are 6 tiles at the top of the board, and there is iconography on those tiles that I can never remember what they all do. I always have to go back to the reference sheet, and there is a sheet, but it would be so much better if I just knew what they were straight away, instead of having to always, and I mean always, refer back to to the reference sheet to find out what those abilities are. It's the biggest negative of this game. All the rest of it, I thoroughly enjoy. I thoroughly enjoy the game. I enjoy the satisfaction of starting with a fresh board and building up a large town and having loads of resources that you farm and harvest and building up a small economy. Obviously, you're going to be sending shipments of different goods abroad. So you've got to collect these resources in which to fulfill these conditions. And as you continue to do so, you're going to build up a successful amount of ships at port that have gone out and done the job. It's really good. It's a really satisfying game. I like Santa Maria a great deal, but there are faults. And the iconography is one that I can't forgive because it's just every time I need to check back to that sheet and find out what they all do. And they're not particularly complicated. Some of them will just give you points for the more towns you get. Some of them give you points for the more resources you've got. But I have to check that sheet to remember them. And that's one of the biggest negatives for this title and why I won't recommend it to people. I will tell them it's a good game, they should check it out. But I don't think with the iconography on those tiles, the general look of the cover is not going to sell many people. And some people don't like the Conquistador theme for obviously historical context. So it's a hard one to recommend to people, but for me, I think this is a exceptional title. I really like it. Hostage Negotiator is one that I recommended on the games for beginners, essentially. Games to introduce people to the solo side. It is an easy enough game for people to understand, but it's just got such a weird look to it. If you're talking specifically about the original game, which I haven't got any of the expansions or any of the new versions, if there were any. I've got the original base box, and it's just got such a weird look to it. The cards with the investigator's face on it. It's just, overall, it just has a very unusual design. I like the board. I like the threat moving around. I like a lot of things about it. I like the game. I like the story unfolding as you're trying to negotiate for the release of hostages. It's in the name what this game is. You are trying to save people from a criminal of some sort who has taken them hostage. You'll be negotiating and trying to earn their favour and make them either succumb to your charms or your wordplay whilst you're trying to eventually convince them to release all the hostages. You want to get them out alive. But over the course of this conversation, this game as it evolves, the criminal, whoever they are, will be difficult to negotiate with. He can turn on you in an instant. He can turn and kill hostages. All of the decisions that happen in it are based on your card playing the game. There's a lot I like about this game. It's got a very good design. It's just the art is so weird on the inside. The cover is gorgeous, but the art on the cards is just very bizarre. And I don't know if it's going to appeal to everyone, but it is one that I do recommend people try if they're new to solo games, because it's got a small table footprint. It's not too complicated to understand, and I enjoy the narrative. I enjoy getting through the story, feeling like, oh, I convinced him at that moment to release that hostage. That was such a good moment. And I played just the right card to do that, call in the SWAT team and take him out at that exact moment, which saved everybody's lives. I enjoy the unfolding narrative that you create when you play the game. And obviously the success of this title spawned its follow-up from Van Ryder Games, which is the Final Girl series. I'm a sucker for history of the Earth, all the creatures and life that came before what's around today. I'm really interested in that whenever shows about prehistoric times come onto the TV and stuff. And Pangea was one I wanted from its conception on Kickstarter. I missed the campaign, and I eventually bought it many years later, and I'm so glad I did. This game has really wowed me. Now, there are problems with this game, and for me, it's not a negative, but for other people, it absolutely will be. So in the game, you are trying to develop your species and you'll be gaining points. And instead of just calling them victory points, they've got a peculiar name. I think it's like distinction or something along those lines. You'll always see it referred to as 1D, 2D on all the cards. It's such a horrible format. Just call them victory points. And then all of the cards and all of the boards in the game, everything has large amounts of text. So you need to be ready to read them. Now, it's not too complicated, but it might throw some people off what the cards are doing at certain times, especially when they're reading it and it's got terminology like, do this and you get 1D. And then what's 1D again? And they're trying to remember. It's got some odd design choices. But ignoring that and ignoring the two quotations on the front, which I don't think should have been on the cover either. I think that detracts from the cover. Ignoring those negatives, because these are minor negatives for me, I think this game is absolutely fantastic. Now, if you get the Kickstarter version with the upgrades, this has beautiful table presence with all of the little plastic kind of fossils for the different factions you play. And there are 4 different subgroup species that you can play in this game. And these are obviously precursors to the dinosaurs. This is an exceptional game because you're going to be taking your species from nothing. You're going to be developing them. You're going to be giving them adaptable traits. You're going to be making them stronger. You're going to be competing against the other species at the table for dominance by taking over different biomes and escalating to the top of those biomes in your strength. There's a lot at play in this game, and there's a lot of sense of reward when you play it and you get from A to B, because you start off at the beginning and you're a very small species. There's only a few pieces on the board. By the end of the game, you've covered most of the continent. You've spread out all over the place and you've adapted to different climates and conditions. And over the course of the game, some of the board will become available. The frozen poles at the north and south will be blocked off at the start, but in the later game, they'll be available. And you're going to be trying to figure out what cataclysm is going to befall the planet before it happens, so that you can kind of prepare. And you'll be doing this through your actions and various things you do in the game. And if you, through a sense of deduction, figure out which ones have been eliminated from the game at the start, which are, I'll explain in a full review when I do it. If you can figure out exactly which cataclysm is going to befall you, you're going to have an idea of how to prepare your species for the end of the world, essentially, this Permian extinction which happened and wiped out a lot of the life on Earth. So using a lot of strategy and forward planning and deduction, you can prepare for that eventual scenario and give your species the best chance of coming out alive. And this is one of the biggest highlights of the game, is when you get to the end of the game, after all the competition for being top dog in your different climates and taking on all the other species, the end of the game, you reveal the calamity that is going to happen to the world, and you follow it through. Entire regions, all life will be wiped out. Pieces will be wiped off the board in numerous areas. You will go from a thriving planet covered in life to a decimated world with only fragments of life left. And if you've chosen the right places to settle your species in this game, then you will survive and potentially be the winner. And this is where a lot of the forward planning and forward thinking comes in. It's such a good story that unfolds as you play, and I really enjoy that. And I played this multiplayer and I had as much fun playing multiplayer. But the solo game is just as enjoyable. You'll still be competing against the other species and trying to be the top dog. Again, trying to figure out what calamity is coming your way and get yourself ready for it. And I have both won and lost the solo mode. So I really like Pangea. There's nothing like it in my collection. There really isn't. That's why I own it. And I say that a lot, but I genuinely mean it when I say it. Pangea is another one that is completely on its own playground. There's nothing like it. It's got an exceptionally cool theme because I like the prehistoric stuff. And this point in time, which was a real time period in our Earth cycle, the Permian extinction, most life on Earth was wiped out, and you feel like that at the end of the game. You feel like you've built a thriving, living world in front of you, and then the calamity happens, and boom. Most of the life on the planet is wiped out. The board is wiped almost clear by either an asteroid hitting, a super volcano going up, gamma radiation. Great game. I like it a lot, and it's not one I'd recommend to other people because of the faults I have with it. God of War, the card game, is another game that I feel is so underrepresented for how good of a game system is in this box. It is a very good deck building kind of game where you will be making your character stronger over the course of 3 consecutive battles, to which you obviously have your final fight, and you need to prepare yourself for that by removing poor cards from your deck and adding good cards. And I like a lot of what's going on. You're going to be positioning your characters on the different location tiles. In this game, this is probably one of the weirdest things about it. Your board is a series of large cards, and there's going to be 8 of them out, and they're going to show you the scene in front of you. But these cards can be flipped if you activate them at the right time or in the right way, and that might unlock different ways to interact with the scene. You're going to be fighting enemies at these scenes. You're going to be interacting with objects. You're going to be using your powers and ranged attacks to interact with them. And some feel more puzzly, some feel more combat based, but regardless of which, you are in for a challenge. You're going to have to compete against it to unlock the level, finish it, and then move on to the next stage. And like I said, there's 3 stages if you're going to play a full game. Now, you can just play one scenario standalone and leave it at that, because that in itself is going to be a long enough game. But if you play 3 successive, obviously your deck's going to get stronger each game, but it's going to get more difficult because there's going to be more difficult scenarios. This is a really good game and a really good implementation of the IP to the table. Does it feel like I'm playing God of War, the video game? No, because in God of War, this is a violent, aggressive, very action-packed game. And this game feels a bit more slow-paced, a bit more steady. You're going to be positioning your character. You're still going to be having tough fights and tough battles, and you're going to feel those tense moments. But I don't feel like it's got that God of War action, you know? But I do enjoy it. It's definitely got the puzzly nature that you do have in some God of War levels. But this is not a game that I'd recommend to most people, sadly. I really don't know how I feel about the board being a set of cards that you can flip and turn. I find it quite annoying, to be fair, where you lay them out in front of you and you can accidentally knock a few, so then you've got to tidy up the board again, and then you're flipping one card and you have to retidy up the board again because you've flipped one card and you've knocked another one. I find it really annoying having to relay out the board over and over again. It's not something I like, using a set of cards for the board. But I understand why they've done it. It is the design of this game. Conceptually, this is how it works. And it does make sense. It's just a bit finicky for me. I really do like the deck building aspect of this game. That's what really shines. And that's what makes it really pop for me, and I do enjoy playing it. But this is one that's on the fence. I might get rid of it, I might not. But I do like it enough that I want to play it one more time to make a decision. So, God of War's not one I'd recommend you try, unless you're into deck builders. And even then, you've got to be ready for your board. There is no board, not existing. It is a scene of different cards that will be laid out in front of you that you will flip and turn at the right times. So, as long as you're fine with that extra work, that's all good. This is by far one of the most difficult games I've had to look at and get into. First, Martians. Although I saw lots of positive reviews online, it was very difficult for me to get into this. But that's not saying I didn't enjoy it. When I did start playing the game, I actually really did. Now, in First Martians, you are on another planet. You will be managing the colony through the board. Is like an interface, like a panel you see at various sci-fi shows and space centers. You're going to have all your different systems are all lit up with green cubes, and there's going to be problems, and they're going to turn to red cubes, and you need to fix them and deal with these issues throughout the course of the game, maintaining the outpost, maintaining your food, your storage, your vehicles, everything. You're going to be running around dealing with crisis after crisis, managing the colony, fixing issues, and trying to keep the place together as you complete the main goal. It really does have a very niche and unique feel to it when I play the game. I feel like I'm in the command center dishing out the orders to people. Go here, sort this out, get to the hydroponics base, sort this out, deal with this crisis there, allocate you to that. I feel like I'm in command, managing the base and sending my staff to the different places. But it's got such a difficult to get into look and feel to the game that I think most people are going to be turned off by it. I really want to play this game more. I like it. I like what it's doing. But I also feel like this is on the fence right now. This is one that I may get rid of in the future, or it might just hang on. But it's by no means a game that I would recommend to people in any way, shape or form, because it's just very difficult for people to get into, I feel. I think it's going to be a hard one to recommend. The Thing, the board game, I'm a huge fan of the John Carpenter's The Thing. Great movie, great horror movie. Believable horror scenario as well. You wouldn't know if the person next to you was the actual person or if there's some monster ready to turn on you in an instant. It's got such a great horror feel. And I love games in the Thing setting. Obviously, I've got a couple now. This one is a very good implementation of it. There's Infection at Outpost 31, which I like, which is more of a party game than a deep game. This, The Thing, the board game, is a much deeper version where you'll be managing the colony on a much more detailed scale. You'll be looking into the amount of food you've got in the storage bay. You'll be managing the fuel that you've got in your generators. You'll be trying to keep all of your different rooms together by managing all your resources and repairs and things like that. There's a lot going on in this game. All the while you'll be trying to test people and figure out who's actually human or not. I think they've done an exceptional good job with this game. And although I haven't played it multiplayer yet, I have played it the solo play, and I really like it. And what you get is you essentially get a few characters out in front of you, but one of them is infected and you don't know which one. You're going to have to try and figure out before the end of the game. And you're obviously on a time limit, so every decision counts. And if you don't figure it out, you're going to have to gamble who gets on the escape vehicle. And hopefully you don't pick the person who's infected. But it has a very good system where you obviously investigate your team one at a time and you can unlock the ability to test them one at a time. I really like it. I'm quite impressed with the solo play of this game. Roll and write games are not my forte. However, I always heard about Fleet the dice game, and Motor City was a follow-on from that title. So I was really excited to get Motor City because I've never found Fleet the dice game at any store. So when I saw this coming up, I was interested in it. This looks at the cars from the production side. So you're managing a factory, and that's what pulled me in because I work in engineering. I know about a lot of this stuff. I find this quite an interesting topic, and I wanted something like a small roll and write. Motor City was the one I went with, and I'm quite impressed with it. It's not one I'm going to recommend to people though, so we'll go over why. First of all, the look of it, and some of the iconography might be a bit daunting for some people. So obviously if you're not into cars and you're not into a production of a factory layout, you're probably not going to like the look of the roll and write pad in this. If you're struggling with iconography, there's a few in this that you'll need to keep referring to the rulebook for, so that might off-put people too. But if you can get over those hurdles, Motor City is a good roll and write that I enjoy. I enjoy getting out. I like that you have your different divisions within the company. You have your R&D, the research, you have your production teams, you have your testing teams who are testing the cars on the track. You've got your sales teams as well who are selling the cars to the market to make you the money you need to operate. I like that it's got all those different departments and you're trying to spread your allocations of your dice rolls to those different departments and trying to balance it so that you get a good amount of improvement in all those different areas. There's not much more to say about it because it's just a roll and write game. It is what I like, but I wouldn't recommend to people unless you're into cars, unless you're into engineering. Escape from 100 million BC. Now, I picked this game up randomly because I was struck by the cover and the premise. In it, you are essentially sent back through time. You are a time traveller, inadvertently. You've been thrown back in time, and you need to get back to your present time. Now, you are thrown back into the age of the dinosaurs, and you will be running around the map encountering all sorts of beasts as you try to find the parts you need to repair your time machine, because the time machine has come with you. So you need to fix it so that you can go back to the future. But you will also be dealing with the nasties, the monsters that will try and hunt you and attack you and kill you at every opportunity. On top of that, you've got to explore the landscape and find the things you need. You don't just know where they are. And you will encounter all sorts of different things, including other humans, other personalities and people from different times who have been pulled out of their time zone into that location. So you might be walking through the jungle and you encounter Abraham Lincoln, who's stood there going, essentially, what's going on? Why am I here? And you have to essentially rescue him. And to do that, you need to escort these personalities, and there are a whole plethora. There's a Roman centurion, there's Socrates, there's all sorts of different characters and personalities. You've got to escort them to specific locations so that they can escape. And you need to make sure that not so many of these people die, because if they do, because they wander the map, and all of the animals and creatures, the dinosaurs, will also wander and explore the map. And if anything encounters anything else, they will attack each other. They will have a fight. Dinosaurs will attack other dinosaurs. And obviously the humans will be hunted by the dinosaurs. So if any Abraham Lincoln is walking around in the jungle aimlessly and stumbles across a T-Rex, the T-Rex is going to go for him. And you need to make sure that not so many of these personalities die, otherwise you lose the game. And you've got to do this whilst you are hunting for the parts you need to fix the time machine. It's a really cool premise, and I'm not a sucker for time travel. I really hate it in shows. But you know what? I really don't mind it in this board game. I like it. I think it works really well, and I've never seen this game talked about anywhere. For me, it's a really good game. I can play it solo as well, and I know my group and my family have enjoyed it before. We played it a couple of times. This game's sticking around, but I'm not going to recommend it to other people because A, you've got to be interested in the time travel premise. B, you've got to be ready to micromanage a lot of little things here and there. It's not difficult to do, but you've got to be moving the creatures around the board at the end of your turns and doing their stuff, as well as doing your own turn. So there's a few things going on in the game. But is it a complicated game? No. Is it a good game? For me, I really like this game. And that cover is absolutely gorgeous. They've done a great job. Right, Grimslingers, I'm going to be right off the bat. I don't recommend this game to anyone. I have this game because I really love the weird, wacky Wild West theme and futuristic tech with mysticism that's all encapsulated in this game, in the art and in the look and the style of it, where you have magic meeting Wild West. I really like this world, and I really like the setting itself. I want to explore this game more. I want to try it more. But it is not an easy game to get into. It is a very complicated and difficult game. It's going to turn a lot of people off. The rules are clunky, don't feel like they're easy to understand and to play the game itself. So I don't recommend this game to anyone. I have it because I'm so engaged in just what's going on. I just suck it into this setting. It's so cool. I think this game deserves a lot more. I think they should explore this world more. I think they should come back and make more games in this setting because it's unusual. It stands out. I mean, yes, on the cover they've only given everything blue, shiny, glowing eyes, but the mixture of merging a magic world and a Wild West world together is very distinct and different. And I like that, and I like more within it. There is inside the game, there is some phenomenal art, absolutely gorgeous art, cool monsters, and a good setting. But the game is so hard for me to recommend because it's difficult to learn, difficult to master. It's quite complicated. My advice is don't play this game. This game is not going to be for 90% of people out there, but for me, I like what's on offer. I just wish this setting was brought back into a different kind of game to introduce more people to it and to build upon this world, because I find it really interesting. This War of Mine, the board game, is an adaptation of the video game title, and it's done flawlessly. In this game, you will be taking a completely different perspective to usual. There is a war going on, and instead of you being involved in the conflict, you are looking at it from the view of a civilian who is in an embattled city. Right now, there's fighting going on, there's bombs dropping, but you are the civilians trapped in this city, and you are trying to survive. You are searching for resources and supplies that will keep you alive. You're building up your base, trying to establish yourself a home in this embattled city. There you will deal with all manner of crisis, whether that be raiders, whether that be killers, enemy soldiers. You'll be dealing with the lack of water, the lack of food. You'll be trying to find resources to barter with and helping your neighbours. This is a very good perspective of a war from a completely different view. You are the innocent civilians and you are trying to survive. And in the video game, it is dark, it is dismal, it is horrific, it is downbeat, it brings down your morale, it can go down dark turns. The board game emulates this perfectly. Your people will be depressed, they will be sad, they will suffer sickness and starvation and thirst if you aren't organised enough and prepared enough. And you will be trying to build your home and expand it with things you need to survive. This is a very cool game and an exceptional game, it must be stated. But the problem is it's a very dark and depressing theme. Not that the game is depressing, the game is enjoyable to play, but it is a drab and dark theme that will not appeal to everybody. The game itself really pushes you to keep your people alive. You want to give them everything they need. You want to look after them. You want them to survive. But it's not an easy feat. And then you're dealing with everything else that's going off around you. And this is purely why I can't recommend this game, because it is an astonishing title, but the theming and the dark setting is going to have a more limited appeal. Endure the Stars is an out-of-print sci-fi game, along the lines with Nemesis and things like that, where there are some kind of monsters on board your ship and you're having to deal with them whilst you complete your mission objectives, whatever they are. There are a couple of things that I think are really cool about this game that I like. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else because of a few things I'll go into, but the things that stand out here is there is a system where there are tokens, blips that move around on the map. So these are the enemies. You know that there's an enemy formation there. You don't know what they are until you come into visual view. So it could be a big, massive monster, or it could be a collection of little monsters that are going to attack you. You don't know until you are within visual sight of the enemy. And that is a very cool system where your enemies are moving around the board, in some cases coming directly towards you, but you have no idea what's coming your way. I think that's outstanding. I think that's a great thing that most games in this kind of dungeon crawling genre should consider, because it's like you would in most video games. You never know what's around the next corner. And the other thing that I think is really good about this game is it's not too difficult to get to the table. It's quite simple. My group really got on with it the last time I got it out. Now, there are problems with this title. When I say it's drab and dark, not only is the setting drab and dark, which I don't mind, I like Warhammer and things like that. There's a very dark setting there. But in this game, the components are drab and dark and boring and horrible to look at. I'll be completely honest. There is a good game here that I enjoy. Nothing amazing, but a good game. But the components really bring it down. The quality of the components are very poor. I would never recommend this game based on what's inside the box. The miniatures also suffer to warping and bending because they're not the best quality. They're not the highest detailed either. It was made quite a number of years ago. But ignoring these negatives, the two positives for me, the blips, radars with the units moving around on the board and you don't know what enemies you're coming up against, and the setting itself, and Duel of the Stars is one I like and I want to keep a hold of for us to play more. I don't think it's going to be around forever, but it is a game I like. But I'd never tell anybody to buy it. Here are a couple of special mentions that I feel will definitely qualify for this list in due course when we've played them more. But Fallout we played numerous times years ago when I originally picked it up, and it's definitely a harder title to get into. There's a lot of reading, and it's not a perfect game. There are flaws with it. So I feel like if we play this more, I can definitely give it more of a deeper review. And it's definitely going to enter on this level. It's not going to be one I rate as one of my best solo games. Skyrim, myself and the group thoroughly enjoyed our session of essentially the first mission, the first game. We really liked it. The thing that I felt brings it down to this video rather than being one of my top ones is there's a lot of bookkeeping and a lot of reading. And as you probably already know, I don't like the Seventh Continent. And I don't like a lot of that bookkeeping aspect where you're flicking through the cards, pulling out the right one. And there is a bit in this. Although there's a bit more story and I really enjoy that aspect and the Skyrim setting, I do feel that that might bring it down to this level where it's one I wouldn't recommend because there's that extra work that people might not like. Lifeform is another cool alien-esque game where a creature has got on board and is killing the crew. I really enjoy this as the multiplayer mode. I've got a solo mode expansion that I need to play more of. I feel like it's not going to have mass appeal. I feel like a lot of the mechanisms, it might be a bit too much for some people, so it's going to be hard to recommend. Lastly, Altar Quest is one that I really found hard to get into. I don't want to sell it until I've really tried to get it to the table and play it because I've put a lot of money down for this game, and I feel like I'd be throwing it away if I just got rid of it without investing more effort and time. Maybe even just some house rules to make it better. But Altar Quest is definitely one that's flawed and I feel would hit this list and not be one I'd full on recommend to people. And so that's going to bring it to the end of today's video. I know it's been a long one. I've covered a lot of games and I feel like I've covered a lot of different games, hopefully ones you haven't heard about before. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please put your comments down below. Tell other people what other solo games do you like but you wouldn't tell people to play. You wouldn't recommend. You'd find them hard to encourage people to try. Let people know and let's get conversations going on that front. Please subscribe, like the video, and obviously drop the comment. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, which gets me over that limit for monetization. So a big thank you to anybody that does subscribe. And thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you all next time.